social health epidemic going on right now. The number of people who say they have zero friends, has quadrupled. Used to be 3%, now it's 12% over the last decade.
And welcome back to Bloom, Build, Birth, the podcast where we talk about women, womanhood, and all of the things that matter to us at various ages, stages, and phases of our lives as women. Today, I am joined by my girlfriend, who I'm proud to call my girlfriend, and who also is an expert. So if she's an expert on friendship, and she's my friend, I feel like that says something about me, actually. But anyway, she's a friend
yourself on the back.
Right? But I feel like anyway, we'll get into it. But you tell us about yourself and your expertise on friendship, your business, 5-Star Friendships. Tell us how you got started with the friendship background.
I am happy to. I'm happy to be here and talk with you. We talk, in a casual friendship setting, but it's always good to support one another's businesses, which is something friends should be doing, and getting a win-win because we're actually giving messages that we hope anybody listening will be able to benefit from. So my name is Anika Allen. I'm a friendship consultant. And most of the time when I tell people that, their eyes are like, what? I don't get it. Or their eyes are like, oh my God, that's fascinating. I still don't get it, right? And so I have to explain what is a friendship consultant. And it's someone who, myself, committed to social health, explaining to people why they should be prioritizing the connections in their community and with friends. Our families are great, but we need other connections, and research proves that outside of our family. So we're going to get into that. I started 5-Star Friendships years ago because I wanted to spread that message around social health so that people could be more intentional about their friendships now so they reap the benefits later, as opposed to suffering the consequences of not making those connections and reaping those physical, emotional, and spiritual benefits from doing so.
I love that. So I'm all about the why behind the what. So yes. I have to ask you, what inspired you to go down this path? Like, what is the reason? What's your why for doing something like this? Because it's not your day job.
Correct.
What's the inspiration behind this business?
The short answer is because I'm a nerd and I'm a boss. I am bossy. I'm a firstborn. So the answer about me being a nerd, I love to learn. I'm always reading and listening to podcasts. I am on my walk one day, listening to a podcast, and I got inspired hearing the research about the longest running study on happiness, the study of adult development conducted by Harvard University. They're on like over 85 years now, studying these people in terms of physical traits, emotional, and they followed them from adolescence all the way until their senior years to ask those people who feel the best, who look the best, who are living longer, they feel fulfilled, and they are the happiest. What is the secret? And I'm waiting on this podcast to hear like, what's the secret? And it had nothing to do with their income or whether they were married or what city they lived in. The number one determining factor of having a happy, healthy life was social connection. And my mind was blown. So I went down a rabbit hole. And when I called my sister, my only sibling, talking to her about, I think I want to teach people about friendship. And she's like, well, duh, you're really good at it. And I went, really? And she reminded me when I was a kid, in the summertime, I'm going to say make the kids, because I was very much a bully. I would make the kids play school with me in the summer.
Now I have to say this. Let me say, my girl is bossy. Let me tell you, I'm sitting here putting my eyebrows on this morning and I get a text like type B. I am very type B, like distracted squirrel. I get a text from Miss Anika over here talking about I'm in the room already. I'm like, girl, I got one eyebrow on. I have one eyebrow on. She's already in the room, already in the studio. Like, come on, like, let's get this show on the road. So yes, I know.
Thank you for vouching for my bulliness. I feel like I'm a happiness bully too. When I see somebody or meet somebody, that's a blessing and a curse. I feel like I have to go into solution mode. How can I make you feel better? And years ago, I learned about toxic positivity and, learning to pump the brakes and chill.
Yeah.
And giving people space to, whether it's grieving, whether it's processing something, that everyone doesn't move at the same pace. And so all of that wraps into learning more about what it takes to attract the right friends, but even more so to be the right kind of friend. And so my sister was reminding me that really from a very young age, I have figured out ways, whether it's making the kids on my block play school.
Yeah.
Through high school, I started my own clubs. College, shout out to Florida A&M University and other HBCUs. I was doing talk shows on campus, just any way to bring people together where they could talk, express themselves, and hopefully connect with someone else. And so it just sort of was a light bulb moment that went off. And the more I got into the research around how important it is to stay connected with other people, I was instantly hooked. And so I have a number of different stories of me sharing my research and people coming back to me and saying, I'm so glad you told me to do this, or I followed your advice and did this. So that's really the why. It came out of a desire to figure out what makes us really happy, and seeing other people make connections that have a lifelong impression on them is so rewarding, because my friends in my life have helped me through, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And I want everybody to have those kind of people.
Yeah. I saw it was an Instagram video. I think it was yesterday. I don't know. My days blur together these days. I'm so busy, but I saw a video either today or yesterday, and it was saying that one of the best things, and I don't know how I feel about this, but you tell me what you think.
Okay.
It was saying one of the best things that can happen is that you have someone who every morning you text each other and say, good morning, have a good day, hope everything, how are you? Essentially like a quick morning check-in, how that one person who you check in with every morning can be, a difference maker and an improvement in your overall wellness. I'm like, I don't know. Does it depend? Because I guess here's my question. Because friendship is so different for so many people, how do you feel like, especially with your both qualitative and quantitative, anecdotal and scientific research, how does friendship show up for people? And since we're all different, what do we kind of get misunderstood about friendship sometimes?
Wow. Let me start with the post that you saw. I can't say that I would co-sign that 100%. If that works for you and it works for the other person, right? It has to be mutually beneficial. Then great. By all means, check in with each other every day, every morning. Actually, I make my father do that. That's a whole nother story, honey. We couldn't find him one day. For people who have parents, my dad is 77, even though he thinks he's 19, and he is out in these streets, honey. And, I talked to him a couple times a week, and my sister had tried to reach him one weekend and he didn't respond back. And next thing you know, 2-3 days go by and we went into panic mode. And anyway, once we found him, he was like, I was asleep for 3 days, sir. Anyway, so we make him check in every morning now, so we don't have to go into panic mode. And he feels important. He feels seen. He feels like, oh, my daughters are really trying to make sure I'm good, right? And so for some people that works, that's important, but that's not the one formula. There is no one formula to a good friendship. So one of the things I would say is misleading or misunderstood about friendship is what you were talking about, trying to compare yourself, right? You're on social media, you see all the women and they're color coded and they're on the beach and you're like, I should be doing that. Maybe you can't swim and you would drown easily. You don't need to be out there. Like, you shouldn't be comparing your level of friendship and connections to other people. I don't have a BFF, right? Everybody doesn't have one best friend. It's okay to do that. So I think the old adage, comparison is the thief of joy, right? You have to stop comparing to other people and just really look inward in terms of what is it that what lights me up, the type of people who light me up, and then where can I find those connections? For some people, it's one person, although I never advise everybody to put all eggs in one basket. And for some people, that's sprinkled throughout multiple friendships, and both are okay. Yeah.
I love that you talk about it from almost like a journey, right? You talk about your childhood and your experience with friendship to now and everything in between. And I know the framework of Her Hive. It's 3 phases, right? It's bloom, it's build, and it is birth. And so I think about from that blooming perspective, it's typically childhood. I mean, you can go back into bloom anytime in life, but definitely in childhood. And I'm curious to know childhood friendships, right? We both have talked about that offline. How do you know, and what do you do if that childhood, that blooming, right, friendship is no longer aligned or doesn't feel the same or maybe as good or healthy in that build or that birth phase of your life?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is, again, it's okay. Just recognize that it doesn't feel good. we too often, and this happens in romantic relationships too, right? We try to stuff those feelings down. We don't want to acknowledge them because I should be happy. I should still be tight with her. We were in third grade together, whatever, right? So it's okay to acknowledge those real feelings and say something's off. And it's important. That's part of your collective, right? Teaching women to be more in tune with themselves so you can recognize, yeah, I have known this person since elementary school, and we used to really feel good and we used to light each other up. And now it just doesn't feel the same. Recognizing that's okay. And I would hope that most women, people in general, but that you don't want to be the same person you were in your 20s, that you were in your 30s or your 40s or your 50s. Oh, goodness, child, please let us not be the same. People are making those same foolish mistakes.
I hope so.
I would hope so.
Because I'm telling you, 35-year-old Nikki, no, like, I absolutely hope that I'm different from her, right? The things that I did in my 30s and in my 20s, even in my early 40s, I don't want to do those things anymore. Right.
And when you say 35-year-old Nikki, at 35, we thought we were the bomb. We were like, oh, I know it all. Oh, I'm not in my 20s anymore. And child, you look back now and go, I did not have a clue. I did not have a clue.
38, 10 years ago, it's such an evolutionary process that, and I don't feel any way about it. Like, I don't feel like, okay, I'm done. Like, as long as I am here and still, I had a yoga teacher, my favorite yoga teacher that I've ever had. I've practiced yoga for a long time. And throughout class, I loved her for this. She would always say and remind us, as long as you have time and breath. If you have time and breath, you can continue to do the things. You can continue to grow. You can learn. You can change. You can be better. You can apologize, right? Like, you can fix it. And I think that's the thing. Like, we feel like either the shame can creep in because, you made a mistake, or the disappointment comes in, and so you don't try again. And I think the reminder that you still have time and breath is so important, especially with friendship, because we can remind each other of that. Don't you think?
Yes. And if you know that on average, the research shows that we shed friendships, or I should say they shift and change every 7 years, then you don't feel as bad. Doesn't mean you break up with your friends or that you have to get rid of people. But on average, most people are making life changes, right? Shifts, whether you're physically moving to another area, your family dynamic changes. And so with that will be changes to how you interact with other people. And it's okay. I do tell people, however, don't be so quick to do a breakup. Just take a break, right? So that childhood friend from the third grade that you're not maybe gelling with, and you don't, kiki and haha, and it's like, yeah, the stuff that she's interested in doesn't really light me up anymore, or we're just communicating different because we're in different stages of life. That's okay. You don't have to, start ghosting.
I wish I knew where I heard this. I wish I knew, and maybe you told me. If you told me this, and then please take credit. But who told me this? Someone said you don't have to like cut every friendship or every relationship that's not going well. You can untie it. Like, get into the framework and the reimagination of relationships by, you don't cut your shoestrings off when you take your shoes off in the evening, right? You untie them. You can always tie them back if you need to go somewhere or come back to them. But when you cut your shoestrings, what you gonna do now?
Exactly. Don't burn bridges. I mean, now it's one thing if somebody, is very toxic. They are injuring you emotionally, visually, they can't be trusted.
I will burn a bridge now. I will burn.
Right. So we're not talking about.
Okay.
Put your matches down. Did I trigger something? Put your matches down. Okay, my bad.
Listen, I will set it off here and there. It's not daily anymore. Okay. But yeah, I still will burn a bridge.
Yeah. But so it's okay to really separate yourself from somebody that's, injuring you emotionally or physically. I have a friend. She fell out, not a conversation, but she fell out with a longtime friend of hers. Something happened and they never really discussed it. She was just like, why would she do that? Like, how could she not know that was inappropriate? But they never discussed it, just went back to their separate lives. And anyway, here we are. I think it was like 15 years later, they reconnected, not knowing they were in a women's group together online. And I love what she said. Again, time and growth. She said, I feel like she owes me an explanation. She wanted to, get that. And I said, that's different from saying she owes me an apology, because I heard the story and from one side, it seemed like, that was kind of messed up, but you don't know what was going on with that person. You don't know why it happened. And so to say, I really wish I could get an explanation, just changes the language a little bit to say, let me hear her side of the story. This was 15 years ago. Let me hear what happened, as opposed to saying she owes me an apology. And
Right.
they ended up, having that conversation. And what sometimes in the moment seems really big to us, later on is like, oh, okay, that's not worth, me holding a
Everything is
grudge.
relative.
Right,
Everything is relative.
right.
So it could be the time and space, right? I know I've heard and I've experienced relationships changing after the death of a parent, right? Or
Hmm.
death of a spouse, or
Yep.
death period can shift relationships in your inner circle. And I
Definitely puts things in
wonder,
perspective.
as we go through life cycles, whether it be having children, children leaving the nest, divorce, marriage, grieving parents, things like that, how do you suggest that we maintain friendships or even nurture friendships as women?
Well, one of the things we can do is talk about it. I
Mhm.
was remembering something I read about a woman who, again, two women, very tight, and one of them was the first in the group to get pregnant.
Mhm.
And she just basically said to her, I feel like things are going to change. And she said, obviously, they will. You're going to have a baby that's going to be your priority. And she was just honest about her feelings, and not, in a put all the focus on me kind of things, but in a, I value this friendship. Is it
Yeah.
okay if we figure out a way to still be intentional about staying connected? So first is just to, again, I don't think enough people speak up. Now, granted, I'm more of an extrovert. I have always been comfortable, again, as a firstborn, telling my younger sister, who's only 1 year younger than me, but I bossed her around like I was her mother. So I get that everybody's not comfortable with that, but you don't have to do it in a loud way. It can be in a very gentle way to just be honest about your feelings and saying, I'm getting a little nervous about, this new phase of life.
Mhm.
But the other part is also to give that person space, right? As things change, right? To say, just because she has a baby, just because she has an elderly parent moved in, or even just because she's starting a business, doesn't mean that it's over forever. If you look at time, right? God
Mhm.
willing, we all have a decent amount of years on this earth.
Yeah.
It might seem at the moment that, okay, you used to get together every week or every month and talk, and now, but a few months, sometimes even a year, because somebody's in a different space, that's not
Yeah.
the end of the world. And you can still find other ways to stay in contact, but be open to shifting to a new norm. And so you
Yeah.
don't get together for brunch every Sunday the way you used to now because this person has a baby. That maybe it is a text, or maybe it is something you do virtually or online, or you set meetups well in advance so that the person has time to make adjustments in whatever their new lifestyle is, so they can get childcare or make sure they get all the business stuff wrapped up. So you just have to be flexible. You have to be
And
flexible.
like you said too, I think grace,
Mhm.
and you mentioned communicating. So like to me, that communication and grace go together,
They
right?
do.
Because if you tell me, Nikki, I hurt my feelings, or I hate that we don't do this anymore, I hate that, that gives me an opportunity to reflect on it, even if it hurts my feelings, right? Or if I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, it gives me a chance to, at least, you're not doing it in an echo chamber, right? You're not
Right.
feeling what you're feeling and then kind of playing it out solo and not giving me a chance to help fix it or to help address it at least.
Now, see, that brings up a story.
Hey, Sissy, I'm going to pause here for a moment because in this conversation, we're talking about women who are going through the biggest changes of our lives since our teenage years. Hormones are doing whatever they want. Your energy is up and down. Your mind is maybe not as clear as it was 10, 15 years ago. And that is something that we cannot stand for. And that's why I want to tell you about MIDI Health. MIDI Health connects women, especially in perimenopause and menopause, with clinicians who are board certified, who are doing telehealth 100%, who can help you figure out what's going on in your body. We don't do guesswork. We're not going to do you're fine, this is normal. You're going to get real support. You're going to get personalized care, and you're going to get treatment options. If you're wondering if you can feel different or better, nothing wrong with getting accessible help home. You don't even have to leave your house. What if your new normal can be a little bit more clear-headed than you're experiencing right now? Check the link in the show notes. I'm going to leave it in the caption. Check the link in my bio. Feel comfortable taking that next step for yourself. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
Do you remember how you reached out to me?
I
Oh, my
absolutely
goodness.
do. Absolutely.
I love this story. So we're in a women's group together, right? We come in, it's after work. Everybody has different lives going on. Sometimes we hustling and bustling. Me personally, I'm over at the food table because I'm hungry all the time. And I get a message from you one day, like, hey, how you doing? Very nice, very gently worded. But basically you said, I feel like something's off. Like,
Yeah.
I have seen you at a couple of these meetings and have spoken to you, and you didn't even acknowledge me.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whoa, wait a minute. Now, part of it might be perimenopause brain, my memory not like it used to be.
Right.
But also I was like, I felt, you would think you would feel terrible. I mean, a tiny bit of me did feel terrible. It's like, how am I going to be a friendship consultant and I'm not seen as friendly, right? But way more overwhelming than that sense of embarrassment or feeling bad for not acknowledging you was, oh my goodness, how awesome is it that this woman has the audacity, which I love, to step up and just be like, hey, I see you. Did I offend you in some way? What's going on? Like, let's just be grown women about this. And so when I, reached back out to you, it was like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. Maybe I didn't hear you. The place is loud. I'm focused on trying to be first in the food line because I'm a germaphobe and I don't want everybody touching the utensils for whatever reason, honey. But, we were able to get together after that, talk about it. And then, new friendship blossomed from there, all because you were mature enough. You were vulnerable enough. You were courageous enough. You can fill in that blank about what you were feeling at the time to approach me. And there are so many women, people in general, but women in particular, because we've been told to be quiet and be demure and not, ruffle any feathers, who are missing opportunities or letting friendships break because you don't want to say what you really feel. Like, I don't know how that's going to come off.
I think it's that. It's also that this whole notion of matching energy, right? Because
please, let's speak on that.
I could have been like, oh, well, she's not going to speak to me. I'm not going to speak to her. She's going to ignore me. I'm going to ignore her. And I'm not going to lie. There was a time in my life where that would have been my response. There was a time in my life where I was not as evolved. Like, I think I've always loved women, but you mentioned the word vulnerable. I did not have that level of vulnerability. It actually, going back to yoga, it actually didn't happen for me until I had some breakthroughs in like 2012, where some deep personal introspection and work had to happen for me to even be able to be that vulnerable, knowing I was going to be okay regardless, right? Old Nikki, 100% would have been matching energy, quote unquote, and not even be accurate in the match, right? But in my mind, I would have been doing that. And so I think it's important to be able to say, okay, what is my responsibility in this, right? Also, because I've had my own experiences where someone took me totally wrong, right? Took me and had me totally misunderstood and mistaken about how I was approaching the situation and how hurtful that still is to this day. And I don't want to do that. I love women. I value our relationships so much and our connection and community so much. I never want to do that. So I love that story, and when you share it, because to me, I also think about, remember like on sitcoms back in the day, they would show like the same situation from 2 different or 3 different perspectives. To me, that's what happens every single day throughout life, right?
Yes, it does happen all the time. It's so funny because I, referencing my dad again, and I don't want to give the impression that I didn't love my mama. She's amazing as well. She passed away unexpectedly in 2004. So most of my memories now are with just my dad, and he can be a little impatient, which is probably where I got my type A, having to, solve everything, do everything from. And he was visiting here, and we were driving behind someone, and they were going ridiculously slow. And he was just like, what is this? It's probably a woman driver. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, he was just going all off about, y'all got all these tourists down here, don't know what they're doing. They need a lane for the people who know how to drive. And I was like, Dad, first of all, we're not in a rush. 2, you don't know what's going on in that car. And I said, the reason I'm able to be a little more patient is because not much long ago, a girlfriend of mine had me stop and pick up a 3-tiered cake for her child's, what do you call it when you Catholic and you go through the ceremony and you finish the class of child? I can't think of the name of it, but she was having a celebration and running late, and she asked me to pick up the cake. And I was driving 2 miles an hour in my car with that cake. And I tell my dad, I said, how do you know they're not transporting the cake? And he was like, what? Right. He uses that analogy now when he's going.
I love that. I'm going to have to remind myself of that because I get
when somebody is same thing. I mean, and not much longer, we were going to Sam's. We pull into the Sam's parking lot, and somebody's car was parked way, really close to the line. And he's like, now, why would you do that? People just going to be idiots. They not no respect. I said, well, how do you know that they had to park like that? Because the person on the other side of them left no space, or all the handicap was taken. They needed space to get a wheelchair or what. And he was just like, are we going to do this all weekend? And I was like, yes, we are. And it's really important that you try to look at things from another person's point of view. It just brings your nervous system down. Like, it's possible that it is not personal, that this person is not driving slow in front of me to ruin my day. Like, literally, they don't even know you. They're not thinking about you. So putting yourself in somebody else's shoes.
That really is, that's community.
Yes.
Right? That's community care, being able to step outside of your own experience, your own opinion, right? Your own thought, and be able to have compassion. It's so critical for friendship, of course, but broader than that, for community.
Compassion, that is exactly what it is. And I love, and I wish more people had it, because the research shows people are lonelier than ever. We're at a social health epidemic going on right now. The number of people who say they have zero friends, has quadrupled. Used to be 3%, now it's 12% over the last decade. And so having groups you can check in with for compassion. When you go, hey, I'm feeling this, I'm thinking this, and then you have 3 or 4 girlfriends go, it's probably this, to think about, did you ever think about this? And it's like, oh, yeah, I might be tripping for nothing. I might be sweating the small stuff. I didn't even think about it from that perspective. Sometimes we need other people so we can get outside of our own heads and look at something from a different point of view.
As I've been building Her Hive, sometimes I'll do a post about friendship or about women and trusting women. And I always talk about safe women, right? Not perfect women, because I'm not perfect. We'll never be, right? But I do hope and strive to be safe for other women. And what I often hear in the comments, I can show you hundreds of comments over the last couple of years, especially, where women will say, I don't trust women. Yeah. This is why I don't have friends. This is why I don't, go to women's circles. I don't hang out with them. And it makes me sad every time I see that, because there are people in the world who are not safe, right? But when they ask me, how do you find women like that? I always say, you have to be it first. You be a safe woman. And I truly believe, and I don't, maybe it's woo-woo or whatever, but I really believe if you are a safe woman, you will attract and bring more of that energy to your life. What do you say to women who say, I don't have friends, I don't trust women? And that's been their experience for decades sometimes.
Yeah, when it has been their experience for decades, I ask them to look at the common denominator, right? Very same. If it happens once or twice, that's human nature, right? But I don't believe the majority of people on this planet, billions of people, are evil. And so those experiences would be the minority, not the majority. And if it's happening to you over and over again, then you really need to look at what it is and it's not that you're a bad person, but it is something that you are doing where you're attracting people who feel comfortable, being toxic around you or not being loyal to you. And unfortunately, some people take that as, well, I just have to shut everybody out. And that is not the answer. What I find interesting is, though, we don't often do that with romantic relationships. We will give a man, woman, partner, whatever your preference is, 50 million chances. But a girlfriend sometimes is like, oh, no, she should have known, and just cut and gone. And again,
I have a theory about that. And I think it's because we are so quick to tell a romantic partner, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I feel like as girlfriends, it's important to tell your girlfriends, I love you. Yes. And there is something about that connection that makes it harder to just let go.
Yes.
If you actually have expressed your affection, your adoration, your love for your girlfriends, I think it'd be harder once you've because there's something about making it real and stating it, right?
Right.
And I think that, and I'm not saying that's the only reason why, but I do think that plays a role. I think it's more of it makes it more real when you say it out loud.
Yeah. Well, you're making you're making a verbal commitment. And when you do it, not just feel it, but you say it, it does make it feel stronger. That bond feels stronger and hopefully less likely to just easily walk away. Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to know, because I've heard women say that too. And I don't know if I have experienced that myself, where we will give people chances when they're in a romantic relationship, but then friends, you quick to cut them off. Do you know, is that a thing? Is that anecdotal, or is there science behind that? Is there a study behind that?
Yeah, there is. It's both. Sometimes we've just lived life, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen it happen over and over again, and it's she just gonna keep staying with him. Right. And then it's funny because on the flip side, you hear that phrase, men come and go, right? But women are here for a long time. So it depends on your own mindset and where you were. Some people have that belief of like, I'm going to be a golden girl, because the men can be gone and I want to make sure I nurture these friendships because those in some ways last longer. And think about it. I mean, just from a biological perspective, at least in this country and a lot of places around the world, men die before women. So statistically, we will be, alone. 80% of us would be dying alone, whether we, lost a partner and we're a widow or you never got married or whatever. And so being intentional about keeping those girls' friendships, those platonic friendships is important because you don't know what life looks like 20, 30 years from now.
That's so interesting you say that because I know that, but I didn't really think of it that way because that's a dig that some men, especially red pill men, I hate to even say the word, but that's a dig that some men will say, right? You're going to die alone. But to your point, that's likely anyway.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Not really. Right. It's not really like an insult. It's a reality for us.
Right. And that doesn't mean you should be settling for them just because you're going to, more than likely be alone. Yeah. If nothing else, you could be like, oh, I'm going to die alone. Okay. Well, I should be putting my efforts on with some other women, not over here. You're going to be gone in a minute. Exactly. Yeah. And this is not to say romantic relationships should not be cherished. We're not, downing marriage or anything like that, but that is very much a reality in terms of.
Yeah. I love that you talk about this as like a social determinant of health. That's a big part of my work is, the social impact of friendship and everything else, right? I talk about prioritizing pleasure. I know we talked about that and like joy, pleasure, happiness, and all of that. What is something that you think women can do more of starting right now to bring more of that into their lives and into their friendship circle?
How do we bring more joy, more pleasure, more happiness into the friendship circle? I would say don't be afraid to go deeper. Yeah. We are really good at, getting dressed up and looking cute for brunch. And we go, but sometimes we're not going, as deep as we could be, right? There are people who are close friends. There was a study done years ago. People who are close friends and one has never been to the other's home. Like they need to, and there are people who are fearful about that are going to judge me. I got to clean it up. It's got to be at a certain place, or this friend makes more money than me, or their home is more beautiful. How are they a close friend? They haven't been to your home. They haven't seen your home, a mess. That's not a close.
Or help you clean your kitchen, right?
Or help you, right? Exactly. And we have friendships out there. And again, women are more likely when we get together to talk about, what we're feeling and things like that. But we are not always being each other's true accountability partners. You can do brunch all day long, but are they helping you, with your business? Are they giving you ideas for different things? Are they asking, what are your goals, your dreams, your hopes, your fears? How can I support you in that? Yeah. Right? We could be saving more money together if somebody had that goal, but we sometimes don't want to use our friends to help us get to the next better level and help them get to whatever their next better level is, because it's different for each person. So I would say one of the things you can do is go deeper, figure out some way to, again, it's fine. Routines are actually great when you have regular meetups with your friends. Those are actually really positive, but find some things you can do that are a little different. Go outside your comfort zone a little bit, try a different activity, try learning something new with each other and letting that curiosity sort of take over. You'll be amazed at sort of new things that you're learning. I have friends that I have known for decades, and I'm always trying to figure out different creative ways when we get together. And I love the fact when I'm with somebody and I go, I didn't know that. Like if I had not asked this or we had not done this exercise, I would have never known that about you. So I would say, go a little bit deeper and try to learn some more about your friends. It makes a huge difference because in learning about them, you end up learning more about yourself.
Yeah. Yesterday I made a post about this speaks to that. And I said, try to marry someone, befriend someone, have relationships with people who are more focused on being happy than they are with being right. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's what that is. Like having that curiosity, that growth mindset is a person who is more interested in being happy, having peace, having fun, right? Than being right about everything. So I love that. I love that so much.
I would add one other thing too, because you talked about in relationships.
Yeah.
Be careful, be mindful when you pick a partner that they understand that your friends are important. There are a lot of women who feel guilty when they are leaving to go with friends. Well, this should be time with my boo or my partner, or they feel guilty if their mom's leaving the kids. And you need to know that you need that time away from them to be another version of yourself, not a different version, but, they're all different parts of us. Some have mom part, some are caregiver part, some of us are running our own businesses or whatever, or you're a wife or partner. And it's important that, you need your own me time and you need time to connect with your friends, and trying to do that up front and letting them know that, so you don't have beef. Like, you're going out with them again. Now, of course, it can't be every night and you're out till 2 a.m. and you're neglecting your family. Right. But, there are some men or some partners in particular.
We're going to have you back to talk about that, because now I'm curious.
Like that. I
feel like that's a really good topic, because I think about that vetting process on both ends, right? Mm-hmm. Both people in that relationship. I feel like you need to talk to each other's friend groups and see, not necessarily like an interrogation, but more
low key interview. You're making some assessments.
Nothing wrong with that. A little bit. Like, I think you need to see, because perspective is everything, right? Yes. How I see you versus how your best friend sees you is going to be very different.
Yes.
And not from like an intel perspective, but kind of intel. Like, you want to know, like,
women's natural instinct to be on intel mode. So
consistent. Is there consistency there? Yeah. So that's a whole nother topic. We're going to have to get into that.
Yeah, because, it just really quick, it's a possible, not definite, possible red flags when your partner, typically men, don't have any friends. Because that can cause, not always, but that can cause friends with problems in the relationship if you are their everything and they don't understand the need for you to be a friend. That's a whole nother
that is a big one. And mm-hmm. Also, it speaks to some social health and emotional and behavioral challenges that could exist in that. I'm nobody's clinician, but I would say run, girl, if you don't have no friends. But anyway, that's a whole other topic for another day. We're going to come back and do that. All right. Speaking of flags, what's a green flag? I meet women, or I go to an event, I'm at a table and we're vibing. What are green flags I should look for that tell me this might be my girlfriend who I can meet? Because I believe you can make friends at this big age, right? Mm-hmm. I'm 48 years old. I still believe I might meet another BFF somewhere along the way, right? How do you see that? What's some green flags?
I love that question, because we spend so much time on red flags. If you look at social media, it's a lot more talk about when to cut somebody off and what not to tolerate. And we don't talk enough about green flags. So some of the green flags are, they seem more interested in you than trying to be interesting, right? Yeah. As opposed to trying to, name drop or floss or, show their Gucci, Lucci, Tucci bag or whatever. They're really like asking you questions. It's like, oh, they're really interested in learning more about me. I absolutely love that. Anybody who's like,
because if you worry about Gucci and Lucci and Tucci, you're not gonna be my friend. We're not gonna be friends, because my bag came from Ross or TikTok.
Right.
Absolutely. So we're not gonna vibe.
Right. And sometimes it's not necessarily somebody who's a big talker. Again, I have to recognize everyone's not an introvert like me. If you are, like you teach, in tune with nonverbal, right?
Yes.
Communication, body language. It's an energy that somebody gives off that says they're either open or they're more closed off. If you are paying attention to that, you can start a conversation with someone who is not the loudest, who might not be comfortable initiating the conversation, but they will answer back. What is the phrase? It says, not everybody smiles first, but most people will smile back, right? Mm-hmm. Opening up that door, eye contact, that kind of thing. Also look for people who aren't afraid to be vulnerable and say something about themselves, so they're not trying to come across too perfect.
Okay.
And if they reveal something a little bit, that lets you know, oh, they're open to like letting me know something about them. And typically that's an open door for me to let them know something about me.
What's something women should stop tolerating in their friendships with other women?
Stop tolerating. Okay. A lot of things coming to mind. So I would say, okay. One of the first things came to mind. One of the first things came to mind was that whole low maintenance thing. We don't have to talk for years and we could just pick up right where we left off. I just don't like that. I mean, I like the fact that, nobody's holding grudges, that you don't have to check in every day or every month, but that is
that a little bit too low maintenance?
That's a little too low. And it's not even really about the times and how much you check in. It's really about, because there are some people who they really don't, right? They're maybe even different sides of the world. but they make a point to get together once a year and do a girls trip or whatever. So it's not that it has to be a certain amount of time, but that bragging about being low maintenance, like, I don't have to check with you. You know, I feel about you. You know, we're good. No, I don't know. Because what happens is you end up with a catch up friendship. You don't really go deep. You haven't talked for months or years. And when you do talk, you're just catching up. Oh, where's this kid? Where's this person? You still at that job? Da, 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 da. You're doing all the surface level stuff because you don't know what's going on in their life and you don't have time to go deeper. So I don't like when we take our friends for granted and just assume that no effort is required to keep the relationship strong. We are relying on history. Well, I've known that person since high school, or they know this, that, and the other. They know I'm busy. Granted, we have seasons where we might not be as active, but long term, I don't like people relying and bragging about the fact that their relationship doesn't require maintenance. Just like marriage, all relationships, if they are going to thrive and flourish, require maintenance, just like a garden.
That's right. That's right. Okay, last question. What is the biggest mistake that we make as women in making new friends or maintaining friendship that we could stop doing right now? One thing.
One thing would be not keeping an open mind to who could be our friend. So we have a vision that says a friend for me looks like me. She went to an HBCU. She's the same height as me, which all of my friends are shorter than me, right? She's the same color as me. We agree on this. And so that's how friendships blossom. I meet somebody and I say, I like this movie, and they go, me too. And you go, oh, this is going to be my best friend. And a lot of times the person can be much older than you or younger than you, a different race than you, from a different country, different religion, background, etc. And we are not even looking at those people. We're overlooking them because they don't look like what we think a typical friend looks like. We need to open up our minds and be more open to going to different spaces with new faces and talking to people, because there might be a lot of things that you have in common or that you want to learn from one another that you're missing out on because you're limiting yourself to a certain friendship circle.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And thank you for sharing all your expertise and your time with us, your science, your research. If, I want to work with you in a corporate setting or a nonprofit, how can I work with you? And again, what could you do for us?
So the best way to find out all the things that I do is my website, 5starfriendships.org. That's FIVE, starfriendships with an S.org. That has everything on it that I do, all of my social media platforms I can be followed on. But if you would like to work with me for an organization to come in and do a workshop or as a keynote speaker, you would just reach out to me. There are certain things I have that are canned, right? But I prefer to customize it for the audience. I also do one-on-one private consultations for people who aren't comfortable in a workshop or a group setting and they really want to tackle their specific issues. So we set a plan and we figure out what your end goal is and how to get there. I talk to students. I have a student program. I absolutely love working with teens all the way up through college because they are struggling big time because they were born into this social media age and don't have a lot of face-to-face connectivity. So whether it's a keynote at a conference or a small workshop for a few people or just one-on-one, I am available for it all. And if you don't want the one-on-one coaching directly from me, I have a workbook. It's self-guided. So you would be filling out as fast or as slow as you want. You can do one exercise a day or a week, and it's going to go into what your friendship beliefs are, how it started, why you believe certain things about the way friendships are. It's going to encourage you to get out and talk to strangers, and it gives you what to say when you're in a room and you don't know how to handle small talk. All of that is in a workbook called, of course, I'm prepared, Friendships to Go. Yes. And that's also on my website, 5starfriendships.org.
More exploring that why behind the what. I love it.
Yes.
I love it, love it, love it. Yes. Thank you, Anika. Thank you so much for your time today. Like I said, for your expertise. And we will have you back because we want to dig into that relationship and friendship piece because I think there's a lot there that we could explore.
There's a lot. I've done whole workshops around that and trying to have balance with that, right? How much do you share with your friends about your relationships?
Yes.
Do you share a little bit, too much? Is that not good enough?
Yes. A whole 15 minutes on pillow talk alone and whether or not that's healthy.
Yes, we could. And I'd be happy to do so in the future. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Anika. And thank everybody for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, if you want to know more about Anika, if you want to know more about friendship, please reach out to her, reach out to me. I'm happy to make the connection. And until then, we will see y'all next time.
Yes, 5. I always wear my star friendship.
Yes, 5 stars. Thank you.